Ladies and gentlemen, we study philosophy in reverse, don't we? We study politics first, and then ethics, and then metaphysics and epistemology last, don't we? We study politics first, don't we? It's the first thing that we try to get our heads around as children, is learning what's going on with everybody doing all this. Ethical injunctions come first, but not philosophically. Politics is more interesting to study than ethics. It's just more interesting when you're starting out. I'm realizing this, and I'm thinking, if that holds true, I wonder how far we could push this. Is aesthetics the first thing that brings you towards any sort of philosophy? None of us would have the ability to introspect on that, because we would have left it behind in order to get to the second and third step before we even understood what we were doing, getting into philosophy. So I think we do learn it in reverse, in forwards. We learn it forwards. If we learn it forwards, why do we think of metaphysics and epistemology as being the base? Why can't we start at the base and learn it that way? Because I'm about to clarify all axioms for you, because we had some problems with axioms recently. Metaphysics is a truth about every single object in the universe. It's a very, very broad category. Now, politics is a pretty small subset, right? It's what governments do to each other in history. So it's pretty easy to grasp something about politics. You see how small of a subset it is? It's things on Earth over here, this little teeny ball of stuff. Epistemology, returning now, going from politics, let's go back to the base and look at what epistemology is, because we see metaphysics makes declarations about everything in the universe. Epistemology makes declarations about the human mind. Not just one human mind, but the nature of the human mind. These are very broad subjects, you know. It's much easier to ask someone who's 15 years old to say, so do you think it's more important to vote, or would you rather a dictatorship like Nazi Germany, right? That's a question a 16-year-old can wrap their head around and get into. You know, and they say, it's important we have the right to vote. Nazi Germany was bad, or whatever. When you're first getting into it, that's a meaty question to think on, right? Now, eventually, you're like, well, why is Nazi Germany bad? Well, because it's unethical to do such and such to other human beings, right? Now you're on to ethics, right? So you discover philosophy by drilling down, as it were. You discover it in reverse. And epistemology makes enormous claims about every single human being and the knowledge they have, and all the human beings who ever were and all who ever will be, and the knowledge that they have and the way they have it. So, axioms are at the base of philosophy. They are the last thing that you come to. Now, I can see why they're so tempting to build from, for the rationalists, for the anarcho-capitalists, for the morons. They want to start with axioms because they're solid. But Rand did not start with axioms. Rand found the axioms, or concluded with the axioms, or used the axioms as she was building, but you don't know the whole time that you're using axioms, because you don't grasp them. You don't even grasp them, so of course you don't know you're using them. So as you're learning philosophy, you don't know about axioms, and you don't grasp them, and yet they dictate everything. So, I don't know. Axioms are important. Let's understand them, but let's stop trying to use them to deduce systems or something like that. Axioms are not like a ingredient list from which you figure everything out. That's rationalism. That's Platonic rationalism. That is taking ideas, cutting them off from reality, and just playing and running with them. That's rationalism. You have to return to reality every step of the way with your ideas. You always have to check back to reality every step of the way. If you ever find yourself saying consistency is useful and usefulness is good and being good is being kind, therefore consistent people are kind. If you ever find yourself doing a chain of ideas, each one linking to the next, you're not checking with reality. So you're playing with ideas that are now floating. Axioms can be like that, so beware. An axiom is at the basis of philosophy. It is not the first line on the paper when you start thinking about philosophy. It's at the basis of philosophy. So axioms, whatever you're doing and whatever your philosophy is, you better not contradict the axioms. Check with the axioms. Make sure you're okay with the axioms. Know the axioms. Understand the axioms if you want. Fine. But they're not an ingredient list to build stuff from. And they're not a principle. They're just a fact. They're a very short fact as well. Geez, I guess I should have gone over them. Existence exists. See? That's quick. Oh, are they not going to come to my mind right now? I'm not going to look them up because I know them. Existence is exist, and then A is identity. Please don't state it that A equals A. Okay? A thing is not equal to itself. That's mathematics, alright? 2 plus 2 equals 4, because when you have 2 and 2 over here, that is equal to having 4 over here. But when you say a thing is itself, that's 1 is 1, alright? That doesn't equal anything. There's no equal sign, because then there's something on either side of the equal sign. Alright, so the first axiom is that existence exists. See, all you said is stuff is. Now, that subject is over. You're done with metaphysics. It's a very short subject. So for you to start with it as a brilliant thing is just strange, okay? It's just a fact. It's just a fact, which we do start with. You have to start with. So just get on with it. Now, the second axiom is that a thing is itself. And that very quickly takes us to the third axiom, which is that consciousness is identification. Consciousness is the act of identifying. Now I know that Daniel Dennett and Sam Harris, they're just going to blow their fucking head off. They couldn't even believe a thought this simple. Consciousness is not that amazing. Consciousnesses are able to identify things. In other words, they're able to recognize the identity of things. In other words, they're able to take account of the first and second axioms. The first axiom being that things exist, and the second axiom being that things have an identity. The third axiom is that consciousness takes account of the first two axioms, or takes account of one of the first two and exists while it's doing it. A pretty mundane fact, but should be pointed out. There. Now we're done with metaphysics and epistemology, and we have a human being standing there. You know? Now, see, just rewind for the last, how long have we been going on? Rewind when I started these axioms, 2 or 3 minutes. You see, this is a solid foundation on which a philosophy can rest. It is not a solid foundation that a 16-year-old should use to start building ideas. They need to grasp all of the ideas around that allow these ideas to make sense. And if you just heard all this stuff I just said about axioms and identity and consciousness, and it was all just, you just don't have any idea what's going on, you should probably study politics and ethics a bit and get your head around a few more areas until more of these questions, until you have more material to deal with these questions. Or ask me in the comments section and I'll try to explain a little more. There, axioms.